Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, my name is Ofente and I am your book bae. Your book bae is once again in the building with another video. So in this video, I will be reviewing Khaya Dlanga's book, Life is Like That Sometimes. It's actually his fourth book. His first three books were titled It's the Answers for Me, released in 2021. This is not chronological, by the way. These things really do happen to me. First published in 2018. To quote myself, a memoir published in 2016 and 2015. And then this is the first book that he published, in my arrogant opinion, 2012. So in that case, this is actually his fifth book, because there's 4 books listed here. So this is his fifth book. About 2 weeks ago, Khaya Dlanga actually posted on his Instagram story about how this is the last book that he will be publishing, because he essentially stated that the return on investment of publishing a book is not necessarily worth everything that goes into publishing a book. I think that he might have gotten some feedback or pushback from followers, because then he also followed his statement by another post explaining that he's not necessarily disputing the fact that there are other costs that go into publishing a book, but he's just saying from the author's perspective, ROI is not great. I think he mentioned also that after getting his check as an author, he said that it was less than a month's rent. So yeah, guys, buy books, hey? And I don't know if there's anything that we can do as grown-ups to actually encourage people to read, because I'm all about encouraging literacy from a young age, but I think we also have a problem in terms of our peers and adults. Adults, we are not reading, guys. We're not buying books. So I wonder, do you guys have any ideas of how we could actually encourage that amongst ourselves, amongst our circles? I suppose a reading culture is something that it's important that it's instilled from a young age, because it's easier for you to kind of continue with what you've been taught. At a younger age, I know from my personal experience, I started reading when I was very young. My grandmother, I would visit her and she was a librarian, and she would encourage me to bring a book every time I went to visit her. So when she'd be doing her scriptures or her reading or whatever she happened to be reading at the time, we'd have reading time, and I would be reading my little book with me, whether it was Princess Diaries or something by Jean Eyre, something like that at that stage. But yeah, guys, so yeah, I'm interested to hear what you guys think about that. Apart from that, hi, my name is Ofente. If you don't know me, on this channel we do bookish and lifestyle content, sometimes mostly bookish content. And yeah, stick around. If you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe and join my bookish family. Without further ado, let's get into the book. So I completed this book about 2 weeks ago. I actually filmed a review prior to this. I wasn't necessarily happy with the lighting, and I felt like I could do the book a lot more justice. So I decided that I was going to refilm the video. In case anybody wants to know how seriously I take this content, I take it very seriously, because I want you guys to have the best quality that I can produce at any given time. So just a little bit about the book, a synopsis about the book. The book is written in a short story format. So every single chapter essentially is a short story out of the author's life. So it's not necessarily written in chronological order up until you get to about page 208 or 200 and something. I remember, yes, 205, when he starts writing about his brother. And this is a spoiler review book or review video. I think that I always communicate that oftentimes I can't necessarily do a review without spoiling it. So yeah, this is a spoiler. Trigger warning for those who are sensitive to suicide and addiction. I would not necessarily continue if you're not in the right headspace from this point moving forward. But in terms of the book now, yes, it's in chronological order from about page 205, where he discusses his relationship with his brother and his brother's gambling addiction and how that led to his brother committing suicide. Yes, so up until that, it's just short story format, where that gives the subject matter more weight, and it makes it, I guess, the gravitas that it deserves, because it's not something that, a subject matter that you would that you would take lightly or even communicate lightly, because it's obviously something that meant a lot to him. He was very close with his brother. He speaks about how when his brother and him used to walk down the street, his brother used to kind of face the ground, like talk to him and tell whichever story he was telling at the time, while looking at the ground and kind of like leaning into him to make sure that like his brother was his support, Khaya was his support. And yeah, that was, I don't know, that part of the book was quite emotional. I think that losing somebody, especially to suicide, is not easy, but I think he communicated his feelings quite intentionally and in a way that was so profound and poignant. So that's a little bit about the structure, and essentially the synopsis of about the book is different stories from his childhood. They track from his childhood up until adulthood, and then like little bits in between, so sporadically going back and forth between timelines up until we get to the around 200 page 205, and then we go into the more deeper and the subject matter regarding his brother, which essentially takes up, and then his mother at a later stage, which essentially takes up the last couple of pages of the book. It ends on page 289 in this copy, and so about the next 89 pages are just him dealing with his grief surrounding the loss of his brother, and then later on the loss of his mother. Very personal book, very personal writing, and shout out to Khaya Dlanga for having the strength to be vulnerable in that way. I actually attended the book launch of the book a couple of months ago. Ayanda Tabete was, well, not Tabete anymore, Mazimbe, correct me in the comment section. She's married now, but at the time she was Ayanda Tabete, and she was the interviewer, basically talking him through the book, finding out what his inspirations were and that type of thing. It was a really well attended book launch. That's the thing that really encouraged me to get the book. I got the book actually in June, so from June up until the time that I started reading it, it was really on my to be read pile. So I have read it now. And yeah, so just going into some of the themes that came up in the book, we've already discussed suicide, mental health, gambling, addiction, family, loss. This progression of being this village person coming in from growing into different spaces, being exposed to the city life. At some stage he stayed in Mdantsane, which is in East London, a township in East London or just outside East London. Residents, please correct me in the comment section. And then after that he moved to Johannesburg and then Cape Town. So I'm not sure if he moved to Cape Town first or Johannesburg first. That is essentially his progression. What other themes? Friendship is a big one in the book, and I really love, just side note, how his friends were able to show up for him in his time of grief and loss. Ultimately, sometimes people won't necessarily show up for you in your time of need, and that's not, I guess that's okay, because it shows you how perhaps they may not have capacity, or if they do have capacity, maybe they just don't necessarily view you as that type of friend that they can show up for. They're just not the friend that shows up, I guess. But I liked that he gave his friends an opportunity to show up for him, because I find that oftentimes people might say, oh, I'm going through a tough time, like nobody was there for me when days are dark, friends are few. But it's also on you to really give your friends the opportunity to show up for you and let them be there for you, because if people don't necessarily know what's going on in your life, how do they show up for you? From on the side of being the friend or the supporting friend, sometimes it's important to actually ask your friend, like, okay, I know that you're going through this, how can I be there for you? Like, what do you need? I don't know, some people can communicate their needs, others can't, but I suppose it's like a case-by-case basis. You understand your friend and you take it from there. But it's something that I picked up on, and I really liked that he did have people around him who would show up and could show up in that way, and not necessarily just during the passing of his brother, but he also details a story about how Trevor Noah kind of diagnosed a problem that he had with his tonsils, I think it was. Trevor Noah mentioned that he had a similar problem, and then he actually went as far as booking him the appointment and making sure that his appointment with that particular doctor was before Kaya's, so he could make sure that Khaya showed up to the appointment. So guys, Friendship Olympics, okay? So I think everybody would be so lucky and so blessed to have such people to show up for them and be there for them. So yeah, shout out to his friends for that. And then what else? So we've discussed the structure, we've discussed the themes. Now I'd like to go into what I liked about the book. So what I liked about the book, I'm saying the different short stories, and just the writing is quite easy to understand. It's tongue-in-cheek, you know, very humorous at times. I think it's colloquial, so it's quite easy to understand. Now and then there's a word or two that you might not, maybe the average person might not understand, a little bit verbose, but that is also used to communicate some form of humor. As the length of the book, I think it's the perfect length. It's long enough to communicate the message effectively, but also didn't really bore you. I feel like on the side of what I didn't necessarily like about the book, it took me some time to get into the writing, but perhaps that's from my side, because this is actually the first one of his books that I've ever read. The first one of his books that I've ever read. So for me, it was really an introduction to him. I mean, I don't know much about him beyond him being a leader in the marketing field, yeah, and then having a lot of like famous and influential friends. So this was really the first time that I was getting to actually hear like who he is, the essence of who he is, and I think that was communicated quite well. But yeah, in terms of what I didn't like, that was the only thing, I guess, the feedback that I would give, that I didn't, it took me a while to get into the book. But like I say, like that was just, perhaps if I had read all of the books like in chronological order, that would have been easier for me to understand and, you know, get into. I'd just like to read you guys something. Oh, another theme that comes up in the book is idea of imposter syndrome. So we've spoken about what I liked, we've spoken about what I didn't like, we've spoken about some of the themes. I think I would give the book a solid 7.5 out of 10. The reason why, I think it's a good read, it's a great read. I think that he was quite eloquent in his expression, and it's great. Like, it's a great book that you can kind of travel, like you feel like you're his friend, you feel like you're getting to know him from a perspective of a friend or a brother, or like somebody like a colleague that might overshare. So I enjoyed that. I think that it was very well written. I didn't pick up any errors, anything like that. Perhaps I could actually push the rating to an 8 out of 10. I would definitely recommend it for anybody who is interested in knowing more about Khaya Dlanga, interested in understanding who he is behind his achievements, which he also talks about. Actually, there's a part that I highlighted in the book that I just like to read, in terms of when he was at an award ceremony or something similar. Life has a great way of reminding us not to take ourselves too seriously, and it would not be long before my next public embarrassment. Fast forward to 2018, pre-Musk era, when I was invited by Twitter to be a part of a panel discussion along with other marketing and social media experts. As I planted my Xhosa ass on the chair, I was introduced, and my achievements, or lack thereof, were read out. Whenever my CV is read out to an audience, I'm hit with a wave of embarrassment, followed by imposter syndrome. During the discussion, I did my best to sound eloquent and intelligent. As a non-native English speaker, I brought my best English with me that day. I even fetched the highbrow English I had on reserved. I featured words such as tantamount, quantum, not to be confused with the public transportation vehicle, defenestrate, amalgamate, and photosynthesis. Ndithini na? I even used phrases like, at this juncture in time. There were about 70 people in the audience, and every now and then I would catch people nodding in agreement or smiling. I figured I was doing all right. While doing my utmost to sound intelligent and impressive, I happened to glance down at my feet. Another strike by my wardrobe. I was wearing mismatched sneakers. Before the afternoon panel, I had been in the office all day. I'd walked from one meeting to another, talking to people in the hallways, pointing and laughing, printing, signing documents, and saying things like approved and no. I can't meet on that day. I have back-to-backs. Well, during all those interactions, not a single soul told me I was wearing different sneakers. Perhaps they thought it was some fashion-forward statement by Adidas, but I assure you, I am not that trendy. Noticing this fashion faux pas, all my efforts to appear sophisticated evaporated. In the middle of some important point, I screamed in pure horror, "Ah! I've been wearing a different sneaker on each foot the whole time?" Laughter filled the room, and with a resigned sigh, I accepted that of all my accomplishments, it was this fashion fail that would be my legacy here. Kubi emhlabeni kodwa siyaqhuba. Ciao. So I just wanted to read that because just to give you an idea of the writing style and just like a cute story. So it's basically just all those anecdotes put together. Anecdotes. Yeah. So guys, let me know if you've read the book, if you enjoyed the book. What did you think of the book? What are you currently reading? And what do you think you'd like me to review next on this channel? And yeah, bye for now.